Okay, this is going to be a quick video on how I edit my Lightroom photos. A large portion of my photos that I edit are edited in Lightroom only. I don't even bring them into Photoshop. Really, the only time I will use Photoshop is if I need to liquefy something. Most of my photos, 9 times out of 10, the majority of my shoots, I edit straight in Lightroom and I'm done with it from there. So for this one, the girl already has a great face. Rachel has a great face, and I don't really need to do too much. I'm just trying to find one of my presets that I think looks good. I use a lot of presets. These are mostly ones that I've created. Basically, to create a preset, you just edit a photo, and if you like the way that you edited it, then you save it as a preset. And over the years, I've accumulated these presets that I tend to use. I kind of go through them each year and just refresh the presets. I have some going back from 2018, 2019 that I don't even use. I just put the new ones in a new folder and just kind of go with that. This preset looks really good. I'm just gonna fix it. No preset is ever exact. There always is some tweaking that's needed. So I'm just gonna tweak it until it looks good to me. Yeah, it looks good. Just a little sharpening. Sometimes I use masking, sometimes I don't. It depends. It really depends on the photo and how sharp the original photo is. Yeah, it looks good. I do tend to add a lot of grain. Now this was shot at 640 ISO, but even still, I used to notice that I added some grain there. I tend to like to use grain, and the way that I edit in Lightroom, the grain actually helps the skin texture, believe it or not. It's really a quick and dirty way to add texture. It looks, in my opinion, as nice as any dodge and burn or frequency separation in Photoshop, but in some cases even better. On her skin, she doesn't have, it's hard to tell what's a pimple or blemish and what's not. A lot of times when girls have freckles like Rachel, they definitely have, they're raised, so you can tell when you look at them close up. So there's not much I'm gonna do to retouch her face. Actually, it's just I like it the way it is. Just gonna lighten up the teeth. A lot of times the colors that I've tweaked in that preset will change different things: hair color, eyes, lip color, skin, teeth color. So I just kind of tweak that. Always lighten the eyes just a little bit. Maybe that's a little too much. Now, well, it's all good. Always like to lighten around the eyes. I don't really like dark around the eyes. It tends to make people look older. So I tend to like everything around the eyes light. That's my personal taste. There's another pimple. Just want to lighten up this area around her nose. It looks really dark. Again, that just a lighter, more fresh look tends to make everyone look younger. That dark, harsh look, it's just not attractive, in my opinion. It's just not appealing to me. And everybody's different. It separates one photographer from another. We could take the same photo, but how we edit it is going to be our own personal taste, and what looks good to one is not going to look good to the other. Yeah, I always like to add a lighter highlight mask there. I do that less and less, but in the past I did that a lot, and it just kind of brings out the face just a bit. But I definitely mask out the eyebrows and the lips to make sure that they're not, the shade isn't changed. And it looks good. And it's a great photo to begin with. You can't really go wrong in either direction. If you look at the settings here, I mean, primarily the skin, her skin is primarily yellow and orange, and that's just what I tweak mostly. And the majority of my black and white presets, it's yellow and orange that's tweaked. Everybody wants to know, how do I edit my black and white photos? It's just the color channels in Lightroom. That's 99% of it. Let's lighten the hair. I think the hair is a little harsh. I want to just make it softer, so I just lighten the shadows just a tiny bit, reduce the contrast just a bit, and get back to this. Okay. Lighting that flower up a bit. I think it. Bring out the contrast. Sometimes clarity helps separate. If it's too light, clarity will help separate those petals. Definitely got to zoom in on black clothes. There's always something. I don't care if you had a lint roller for 10 minutes on that shirt, you're going to find something when you zoom in. It's nothing worse than editing a photo, finishing up, finally done, and then you export it and then you see, lint on the clothing. That's just the worst. Or very bad wrinkles. That is another thing that I can't tolerate. A lot of this you can do in Photoshop. If you want to do dust and scratches and just do it that way, you can. But why bring it into Photoshop if I don't have to? It's the same with these stray hairs. Overall, her hair looks great. If it was really bad, there's some stray hairs on the right here that I may, if I was being picky, I could go into Photoshop and remove those just to make the hair look a little smoother, but it's fine. Just gonna remove some of the distracting elements from the background, the V-flats. I like the messy background like that. I tend to use it a lot, but sometimes if it's too close to the subject or if it distracts, I'm gonna remove it. I don't remove everything, but I do remove certain things that stand out to me. And yep, that's it. I'm done. I just export it to a JPEG, 300 DPI, and it's done. So I'm going to do the color version as well. Obviously the color looked great straight out of the camera, but it could always use a bit of tweaking. So I'll just make a copy of the previous version, the black and white version, and then just find a color preset that I like that is simple. For this, I just want something simple, nothing crazy, nothing too dramatic, just simple and clean. She's a young girl, beautiful face. I just want simple and clean. That usually tends to get the best, long-term effect. I want to look at this 10 years from now and say, oh, still, that's a great photo. I don't want to add some crazy filter, make some crazy color choice, and then down the road, I'm just like, oh, well, that's just outdated. Or you use something trendy, and it's just like, I put a lens flare in there, some type of light streak, and, down the road, I'm like, yeah, that was a bad choice. It ruined the whole photo. But, if you choose something classic, simple, clean, down the road, you're going to be happy with the photo no matter what. It could stay in your portfolio for years. So I'm just doing the same thing I did with the black and white, just tweaking that preset that I chose. It doesn't require much. Usually, and I'm done. So I'm basically just going to look for another one. A lot of times what I'll do is, especially if the edit is really quick, I'll just make a couple of versions because I can't tend to decide which one I like better, and I'll decide later on. Maybe a few days later, I'll look at them and decide. So in this case, I think I'm going to make another one. This one looks good too. It's really hard to decide. It's a little too much grain, I think, for this. Yeah, let's just bring that down a bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a couple of these. Now, I know you're asking, what if I don't find a preset that I like for a photo? And that happens a lot, actually. Then I will just start with the original photo and just start playing around with it until I find something that I like. A lot of times I can use, if there's a mood board or an image that maybe the model or the client brought, I can use that and try to tweak things to look similar to that, and then I take that and then go in another direction or maybe improve upon it in my opinion. And then I'll save that as a new preset. And that does happen a lot, where I will have a shoot and none of my presets are working for it. Maybe they're not clean enough. Maybe the conversion, when you apply a preset, it's never 100%. So it doesn't look exactly like you expect. So in that case, I'll just have to start from scratch and create a new preset after I'm done. I will say that I feel that Lightroom, in general, the editing that I see from Lightroom is very muddy. The colors, for a lot of photographers, for some reason, it's just coming out muddy and just unclean looking. I just don't know why. I can't put my finger on why or how they're editing things, but I can point out you can line up 10 photos and I can point out the one that was edited in Lightroom because the way the colors were managed there. And I kind of take great care to make sure that my colors are clean, not overly saturated, not muddy, and true. It took me a while to get this because overall my preference is black and white, but you can't just do black and white. You gotta have color photos as well. So my learning curve for color has been long, but I feel now that I have kind of a good idea about it, and I focus really just on clean, something simple and clean like what I'm doing here. It always works. It's timeless. You can't go wrong. Once I'm done with these, basically all I'm going to do is just export them. I usually do 6,000 on the long end, 300 DPI, and I just export them to my Dropbox, and it just automatically uploads to the client's Dropbox photo that I made for them, and then it's done. That's it. I'll probably do a video in the future more on how I set up my Dropbox, which is very convenient, saves a lot of time. Also, I may do one on what I do in Photoshop if anybody's interested.